Hello folks, you're all very welcome back to Celtic Fanzine TV and the Talk from the Terrace podcast. I'm Andrew Milne and this podcast is brought to you by More Than 90 Minutes Celtic Fanzine, which first went on sale outside Celtic Park 21 years ago, which is making me feel old, folks, which I probably am. Issue 122 is now available to buy in both print and digital format, and you can get all the details by visiting celticfanzine.com. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, and if you're a returning visitor, thanks very much for tuning back in. We must be doing something right. Sponsorship is always on the agenda, and we couldn't do this without people who do sponsor the podcast, and we would like to thank this episode's sponsor, Paddy's Point Pub, Lasagna, Spain, and we thank Rory and Hazel for the continued support. Paddy's Point is the home of the Paddy's Point Celtic Supporters Club. Every game is shown home and away on the big screens. And if you're in the area, pop in. You're guaranteed a good Celtic welcome. Bit of a sing-song maybe after the game. But the important thing is you're guaranteed Celtic on the big screen, which sometimes when you go away, you're put in the corner when the Premier League games are on. But not this pub. They have their own section, and a great section as well. And the grub is great in the pub as well. So if you're in Lasagna, don't forget to pop in and see Rory, Hazel and the Celtic Supporters Club. Well, what we're going to talk about in this episode of the show, we're going to look back on Saturday's 2-1 win over Motherwell. A tense and frustrating game at times, but we got the 3 points. And we'll also be looking forward to a wee trip to Germany, where Celtic take on RB Leipzig in the Champions League group stages, where we all want to be. And who better to join me for a chat than an old friend and a regular to this podcast, Matt McGlone. Matt is editor of the Alternative View Fanzine, and he's also the founding member of the Celts for Change. And anyone of my generation will remember how badly things were going at Celtic back in the 90s. And Matt and the boys came in, started a campaign, followed on from the Save Our Celts, and I suppose the rest is history. They iced the old board. Fergus McCann came in, built a new stadium, stopped at 10, won the league, and following on from that then, we got to that wonderful UEFA Cup final in 2003 and that run. So to Matt and the boys, thank you very much, and to all the Celtic fans for getting together that time and overthrowing that old board. Old relics. Matt McGlone, you're very welcome back to the Talk from the Terrace on Celtic Fanzine TV. How have you been, mate? It's been a while since we chatted.
It's been good. I remember, Andrew, our last conversation, or one of our last conversations on here was rejoicing winning the championship, getting our title back to its rightful place. And I think we've had a great summer as far as Ange strengthening the squad. Everything was done pretty early, nothing done on last transfer day apart from the odd thing. But all the plans put in place, and building bricks done the way they should be, building the club from the basement up on a solid foundation as far as squad goes. So yeah, pretty good start to the season, and I'm not concerned about the wee blip at the minute. Nobody can win forever, so we're still top of the league, and we've got a lot of influential players out, and we're still winning. Well, apart from St Mirren. But, I'm not concerned at the minute.
Matt, the automatic qualification for the Champions League is just such a positive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it just shows you what you can save there. I mean, look at all those games. We might have had to have played, 6 games before we kicked off the league season. So that gives you a lot of breathing space. Good time for players to bed in. Good time not to overdo it, because you've literally just finished a pre-season into 2 games a week. That has never really sat easy with me as far as, I think having proper preparation for the season ahead. So I think, as you rightly point out there, having automatic qualification was very good for the team, and I think the benefits of that will be throughout the season as well, not just now.
Yeah, and it just shows the inequality that leagues like the Scottish League and indeed the Irish League, and they have when it comes to all these qualifications they have to do to get in with the big boys, where the big boys they're just ready to go. They know they have their pre-season, they know what they have, whereas even as we went into that league, one thing was to regain the league title, but that qualification was just massive. And like the summer was like, even for ourselves as fans, like, you know, like the league started, and then that was the season started. Previous seasons, Matt, you know, the kids aren't even out of school and you're going to see Celtic again, you know. Never mind back at school.
Yeah, no, it was. I felt it was very, very beneficial for the entire squad and gave Ange a bit of breathing space. Remember, Ange came in and they hit the ground running. I mean, he didn't know the players, he didn't know anything. It's so well documented. But this year he's had that breathing space, and I think when you have that, you can plan properly. And I'm pretty sure you'll see the benefits in the squad throughout the season as the season progresses because of that relaxed start, and we're not flying players all over Europe and ask them to perform a couple of days later.
Now, Saturday, Matt, frustrating at times, tense at times for the fans, and I'm sure it was for Ange as well, but it's great, you know, a traditional 3 p.m. home game on a Saturday. There's nothing beats it.
No, it's great. The main thing on Saturday, you probably remember, was trying to dodge those torrential showers that were coming down. 1 minute it was like Saint-Tropez at Celtic Park, and the next minute it was just like monsoon weather. So you had to dodge them so you're not sitting soaking the whole game. But yeah, Saturday was one of those frustrating games. Again, we made loads of chances. Again, we didn't finish teams off. We know we can finish teams off up at Terrace, obviously 9-0. But yeah, a wee bit frustrating. But even with all those wee negatives about Saturday, I always felt throughout the game that, you know, that Celtic can score. You know, they can score. I don't mean at any time, but they're always likely to get a goal at any point in the game because of the attacking. You know, I think the quick one-touch football, very fast pressuring, it hasn't been around for a couple of weeks. And Celtic still managed to maintain that passing game. Unlucky, some odd decisions. And one thing, you know, I have to say, when Callum McGregor took down the Motherwell player going through, I actually clapped that because, you know, we've been in the wrong end of some dodgy decisions. And this game is all about winning 3 points. He took one for the team there. The captain took one for the team. He probably knew in his mind as soon as he had made that challenge that he was going off the park. And fair enough, that's the way it goes. We have to protect the 3 points. And it was a professional foul. And we've seen it against us. So we're all playing the same game, aren't we? So we can do it as well.
No, he showed leadership and experience, man. Because a younger player would have he was the right man in the right place. A younger player would have probably just let him go through, and thinking he's going to get in shit with the manager if he takes him down. But no, it was 100%.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember at the game, the crowd clapped him, and you don't often see that at a red card. It is all about leadership, and. I'm glad he did it because it shows a different mentality in the team. As you rightfully say, leadership coming from the captain. In the past, we might have just let that happen. And in the past, we're sitting talking about missing chances here and dropping 2 points. The bottom line is getting 3 points. Teams don't play against us every week in the fairest manner. And that's just the way it goes in football. I'm glad he did it. And it showed a togetherness and strength as far as what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and Hatate could have went from hero to villain, with that sloppy pass. But the captain saves his blushes, and because we do want to be talking about that wonderful goal when the 90 minutes are up.
Yeah, I know, and slack passes happen in football. I wouldn't blame Hatate. I think just he seemed to make the pass before he had turned round properly to see exactly who was covering who. I think it's just one of those things. He scored a great goal to win us the game. I've heard a bit of criticism for Juranovic, but remember, Juranovic rattled the bar just before, the mistake with Joe Hart. It's one of these things when play, I think, is going on so quickly. things are happening so fast. Misunderstandings do happen. I'm not crucifying any of our players. I just think these things happen in football. They don't happen every week, and we move on for it. We've got the 3 points. We're sitting top of the league, and our performances overall this season have been excellent.
Yeah, look, Juranovic he's been very solid for us most of the time, and it was a freak one.
Well, it was a freak one. It happened that quick. I thought he'd actually headed it away and chested it back. Yeah. And I think, I've looked at it a couple of times. I wouldn't know who to blame. I don't really want to apportion blame. I'm just putting it down to one of these things. It happens in football. How often do we see it? Well, you've probably never seen a ball being chested into the net by your own team. And I haven't either, so that shows you how rare it is.
Yeah, of course. And just the other talking point from the game is Kyogo. He just does it. He's just, his performances are almost, identical. He gives you 100%. He works for every ball, and he's on the end of balls.
Yeah, he's a great reader of the game, because whether that ball was going to get into there or not, the fact that he was there to bullet it in is all that matters. He's got great awareness of the game. He's very quick. He reads the game very well. He reads the second pass very well. He reads where to be when he sees a pass coming. And he's a great wee player. Sometimes his standards have been so super high that if we go through a week or two that he hasn't scored, you think, is he off form? But he's not off form. It's just that his standards are really, really high. And a great addition to the team. But, we've got two international centre-backs out, our entire back, our entire centre-halves. And Gio Kamakis, the option that we have, wasn't available either. We've come off an international week where we've had players injured, not playing for our club, but playing for their countries. And off the back of that poor result at St Mirren. So the main thing was stabilising and getting those 3 points with those injuries. And at the end of the day, it might have been a wee bit nervy here and there. But I turned around and I said to my daughter during the game, I can't see us losing this, and I still think we'll score.
Yeah, I felt like that myself, man. Especially at home, I never feel that. I never feel an edge, maybe the way I feel sometimes when we're away early in the game. But then, once we get a goal when we're away from home, the nerves settle, and the atmosphere away is always a bit. It's a bit different, because where I'm in the main stand at home games, you're generally in with a singing section at away games, and they seem to carry the team, Matt, as well. Whereas sometimes at Celtic Park, because both ultra groups now, and it's great to see the boys having their own section now as well, because the stadium's so big, Matt, sometimes when things are not going according to plan, there can be moans and groans and frustration, which with a smaller crowd away from home you don't get.
Yeah, that's it. It seems to ring around the stadium. You can always feel the tension, can't you, in a home game if things are not going well, whereas at a away game it's a bit different. That's just the way it goes. I mean, I think in seated stadia these days, you have a more relaxed and less frantic attitude towards the game because you're seated. I think it's just natural because you're seated, and sat away game and they're trying to sit down one time. It's just a complete waste of time. You can't turn around and say, "That's my seat, mate." It doesn't look like that at away games.
Well, you can, but you mightn't like the answer.
Well, I've heard the answer. So, yeah, I think just people seated at away games, and if you're seated and you're sort of disappointed at what's happening in front of you, you tend psychologically to go quiet, and I think that's what happens. But, the team have been very entertaining throughout, the majority of the season, and I just feel really assured when I see Ange standing there on the touchline. He never sits down during a game. You see other managers stand up, then go and sit down. But Ange is standing there, and it's almost like he doesn't celebrate wildly when we score. It's because he seems to be absorbing everything, taking in the entire movement of everything that's happening on the pitch. That for me gives me a reassuredness that he knows exactly what's going on. He's on top of the situation. He'll know what subs to make at the right time, and he'll know what to do to help us over a wee bit of a bump during the game.
Yeah, he's the cool head, all right, apart from that game last year in the League Cup when he lost the plot briefly. What is really annoyed me this season, and I tend to sort of brush these things off when I see them in social media, is I'm being linked with just about every single job in England that's going. There was one yesterday, it was like, Jesus Christ, take a day off, linked with Wolves now. Honestly, if it's not Wolves, then it's Brighton. If it's not Brighton, then it's Leicester. It's just like, take your pick, potluck. The way I look at this is, I feel quite assured about this. I don't get alarmed when I see these things. I find it more annoying, the fact that it almost is like a wee game in the media. They're not saying Gio is, fancied for this job or that job. And we keep hearing about how great Rangers were in Europe last year. Well, Gio's not getting a shout for any job. It's Ange. So that's quite annoying. So you tend to think, well, there's a wee bit of naughtiness going on here to try and maybe do a bit of unsettling. But the way I look at it is, Ange came in, took on what he would class as a project, a team who needed rebuilt, a team who needed a new spine, new confidence, and new flair players. He's one of these guys, I think, that comes in, takes that on board, and starts it from there, and sort of says, we're here now, and we're going to finish here now. I see Ange for being here for 3 to 4 years because he's a guy that takes on a task, a project, and he's not going to walk out in the middle of it. He's English Premiership. He's not dazzled by getting multi-millions of pounds. He's got enough money. He's quite satisfied. He seems a very self-assured person in his life. In his life, he seems to come across as he's happy at what he's doing. He's in the middle of building something. And I think that's where Ange gets his kicks in football. Starting a job, seeing how it's going and completing it, and then maybe taking on another project. So yeah. I don't feel that he's going to leave at any time during what I would regard as year 1 to year 4. No, I hope you're right, Matt, and I think you are. I think Andrew's a man on a mission. But the way the media works, Matt, it's completely different than it used to work. It used to be all on newspaper sales. So a guy writes an article, he doesn't have to write an article to the next day. It's not going to appear the next day. I spoke to a lad that works for one of the tabloids on their website, and he said, they need, X amount of 100,000, 1 million hits. So that's why they're constantly, and they know that the Celtic fan base will click into these headlines. That's why they do them. Now, I see your point that they don't seem to be writing up stuff about this great European run and the manager of our rivals, which is probably something that we expect anyway, Matt, from the laptop loyal, as we've called them over the years. But yeah, it is a whole click and bait thing now. You'll see a headline and it won't tell you. It will get you in, and then when you click in, you'll realise it's just crap.
Yeah.
And that goes for some of the Celtic fan media sites as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's just annoying when you see these things because you sort of think, not again, the one yesterday about Wolves, I just sitting in the afternoon, I wasn't particularly doing a great deal, and I did react to it, and you're right, I did. I probably ended up getting a whole bundle of clicks on it, just because I reacted to the absurdity of the rubbish story. But that's human nature, isn't it? Sometimes you do react to things where you should say you shouldn't, But yeah, I think you've explained it pretty well there. That's why these newspapers do it.
Yeah, and
get clicks. Because clicks gets advertising money, doesn't it?
That's it, Matt. Matt, a big game on Tuesday, and I just was reading about Leipzig the weekend, and just over the last couple of weeks, just doing a little bit of research ahead of the game. Now, they sit bottom of our group in the Champions League, no points, defeats the Shakhtar at home, which was a kind of a shock result, and also the manager got booted out. An expected away defeat to Madrid. The home form has been mixed, Matt, in the Bundesliga. They sit 10th, At the weekend, they beat bottom club Bochum 4-0, but they've also beaten Dortmund at home 3-0. So I think we have a tough night ahead.
Yeah, it definitely is a tough night. It wouldn't be a disgrace to go there and come back with a point.
Absolutely.
Because you have to look at our situation. We have a couple of, 3 at least influential players missing that would help swing the game either way for us in defence and attack. So we have to take that into account as well. You mentioned the record there, it's a bit mixed, but they have a pedigree. There's no doubt about it. They have a new manager. So that always gives somebody an impetus to try and impress, and the malaise of the old manager not being there has gone. So they're not in that malaise that they were in when they get beat by Shakhtar. So they're in this let's try and prove something situation. Yeah, a right tough game. We'll have to be on the game totally. And we have to look at the players that we have available. You can't just lose 3 international players and walk into a Champions League game away from home and expect everything's going to be the same as you might have thought it was had you had those players. Those players are big players for us. So, yeah, I'm confident again. I felt in Warsaw, I thought we played very well. We could have the game tied up, even before they scored. Again, ruined the missed chances, and I always feel I don't feel bad about talking about missed chances because we've made them, but we do miss quite a lot of chances. So we take those chances, we keep the game tight, and we go into the Leipzig game with confidence. I would think that if we did get a draw there and we won our 2 home games against Leipzig and Shakhtar, then that would be enough to see us through.
Yeah, Matt, the Champions League form so far has been good. Although we were beaten 3-0 by Madrid, we put in a great shift. Especially the first half, we looked a better team. Obviously, they've got, quality throughout the team, quality on the bench, and they were able to, unlock us. And, maybe we switched off for 10 minutes or whatever. But, it is Real Madrid. They are the Champions League champions. The champions of Spain. So I think when we left the stadium that night, Matt, we weren't disheartened. We weren't sometimes when you get pumped in the Champions League, it can be a lonely walk, even if you're with all your mates. It can be a lonely walk back to the pub or back to your supporters' bus or whatever. And then, it's a frustrating conversation you're having because you're going to have the ones who are always negative and the ones that are always positive. And if you're sitting somewhere in the middle, it can be, it's just a conversation you don't want to be in. But then we went to Warsaw, and now we were the better team by far. Should have won the game. I think we left 2 points there. The first 5 minutes, Matt, was just we just couldn't hit the target, but we couldn't stop getting chances. It was it was an amazing start.
Yeah, it was. No, exactly. That's what I was saying. We could have won the game before they scored. The Real Madrid game for me, I must admit, I sat at half time and I was trying to digest what I was watching here. I was watching a Celtic team that showed the maturity to play the game, not be downed by the fact that you're playing the Champions League holders. We took the game to them, so therefore there's a real mental change of attitude there. We're taking the game, our game, the way we play, to Real Madrid. We're not adjusting our game to try and counteract what they can do. We played our game that we watch at weekends against Real Madrid, and they struggled at times with us. If Callum, I know it's a game of ifs and buts, we'll talk about walking down the road later on, we're all talking about the ifs and buts. But had Callum, not rattled the woodwork there, that game could have been a lot different. For 60-odd minutes, we took on the champions of Europe and we played our game against them, and they weren't entirely comfortable with it. Bits of individual brilliance won the game for them, and that's why they have got players worth hundreds of millions of pounds. That's the difference, with individual brilliance. But I wasn't unhappy, obviously, wish we got a better result, but I wasn't unhappy in any way shape or form about performance. We took our game to them and they struggled with it. And that's what I felt was great.
Yeah, and there was a certain bravery about Ange. I remember in the press conference before it, he said, look, we'll be playing our game. And he was honest to his word. And so were the players. It was a real honest performance from them. Matt, just before we wrap up, Jock Stein would have been 100 on Saturday. He's on the cover of the programme. Jock Stein was before my time, even though I'm not a young man anymore. But Matt, you were there, Matt. Just finish off with a memory of this great manager.
Well, I mean, Jock Stein, when I was growing up as a wee boy, I saw this image. And I was lucky enough, my father took me to all the home games in the run-up to the the European Cup. It wasn't at the final, obviously, but he took me to all the home games and run up to it. And I saw Jock Stein as this Superman figure, this godlike icon. Like, as a wee boy, I had nobody to compare him to. He was just the leader of the Celtic team. He had come in and... I see so much of Ange in him, and I'm not saying there's no comparison. They're two totally different men. But I see a lot of traits in Ange that in Jock Stein, doing things simple, playing the game the way you want to play it, and making players better players. If you look at, I think that, I know it's not comparable these days to what transfer fees are, but I think the most we paid was £40,000 to buy Willie Wallace from Hearts. And most of the other players had been there before. Jimmy was there, Bobby Lennox was there, Bobby Murdoch was there, Ronnie Simpson was brought in, Billy McNeil was there. And these particular players, although became greats and legends and giants at Celtic and never to be forgotten, they weren't doing particularly well, prior to Jock arriving. So that shows you when he came in, he had that Midas touch, that magic, to get the best out of players. And when you think back, it's very novel. I see these pictures of the team running up from Celtic Park. There's a great picture, I think it's Bobby Murdoch and maybe Billy just crossing the lights at Springfield Road. There's a wee woman walking by with her messages, in a headscarf on, and the Celtic players are running up the street to go to training at Barrowfield. You think of these things, and these guys became giants in Europe. Unbelievable, fantastic memories, and nothing can touch that nostalgia that we had then. When you compare it to the money today, money can spoil football. It can take away the originality. It can take away that running by the wee women, walking up London Road with a headscarf on, carrying 2 bags of messages. Messages for those younger people out there are 2 bags of food in general and things you need for your house. Big Jock gave us some magic moments. And, Lisbon, there's a great photograph in Lisbon, and we actually printed a T-shirt on it and called it The Moment. There's moments in life that we'll never forget, family moments, your firstborn, Celtic moments that never leave you. And this moment was the final whistle going in Lisbon and the bench just leaning forward like that. And Jock's not there. Jock took a walk about a minute and a half before it. He just took a walk down the touchline because it was too much. I could just see in his head thinking back to when he was a footballer as a minor down in Wales and came back up from there to play for Celtic. We signed Jock from a non-league club, to come up here as a player. And so I think he was thinking, that moment, I've reached the pinnacle of my career here. We've won the European Cup, Celtic Football Club, champions of Europe, first British team ever to do it. Nobody can ever take that away. And those wonderful memories will always be, even in people like yourself who were a wee bit younger at the time, when you got to hear about them and you experienced them, and it just rivets right through you what these things meant. So Jock, for me, was the most pivotal manager in modern day Celtic's history, we can obviously go back to Willie Maley and Willie's, a long time at Celtic. I think Willie Maley was employed at Celtic in various different positions for about 50 years. So he's obviously very pivotal. But Jock's seen 100, my goodness. And it's strange that Jock passed away during a football match, right at the end of a Scotland-Wales game. He collapsed in the dugout. And sometimes you sort of think, is that some kind of message, some kind of signal that you lived and breathed football and you die in the football park?
Possibly, Matt. That was... I have a lovely memory in my head of you and your dad going to the games, because I'm always interested in the fans' journey, and that is just, that was how you started the piece. And there's so many things you could have spoke about Jock, but it was a personal memory. So thanks for sharing that with us, Matt. Thank you very much for chatting to me. Don't leave us so long to come back and chat. Hopefully, Matt, we can get you on regularly, and hopefully you're smiling after the trip to Germany.
Yes,
thank you very much.
I'm pretty sure we will be, Andrew. We've got a lot to look forward to with this team.
Hail, hail, brother.
Hail, hail.
Again, thanks, folks, for watching the show. Thanks to Matt for joining me. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so, and you'll never miss an episode. Thanks once again to Paddy's Point, Lasagna, Spain, for the kind support and sponsorship of this episode of the podcast. We will be going back to live shows. A few people have been asking about Celtic AM and so forth. But our first live show in a long time, folks, is in November. We're in Petter Brown's, and John Hartson will be my guest on the night. And we're really looking forward to that. And there's musical entertainment after. And the tickets are on sale on Eventbrite. And I think that one's selling well. So if you're planning on coming to the show in Dublin, get your tickets now. And we're also, on Saturday the 12th of November, we will be in the Rue Glen Hotel as guests of the Portlag Emerald Celtic Supporters Club. And joining myself and John will be another famous John Fallon, the Lisbon Line. And tickets for that one can be got from any members of the Supporters Club, and you'll find them on all social media platforms. That's Portlag Emerald CSC for the dinner on Saturday the 12th in the Rue Glen Hotel, and also on Friday the 11th of November. If you go on to Eventbrite, you'll find the tickets for the show in Petter Brown's, and I'm sure you can also pick them up from Aidan in the pub. And we're delighted to get the invitation and to be back out in the live circuit. Fanzine wise, there's about 20 copies left of More Than 90 Minutes, the print edition. So thanks again as we head for another sellout. You can also download the digital edition, and all details of both digital and print are available on CelticFanzine.com. You'll also find subscription details, back issues, t-shirts, badges and scarves. At CelticFanzine.com you'll also find daily news, articles, all our audio Celtic Soul podcasts from day one, and all our Celtic Fanzine TV videos. We deliver free content to all Celtic fans across all our platforms, written, visual and audio. And if you'd like to support us, you can do so by sponsoring the podcast, sponsoring the fanzine, subscribing, buying a fanzine, or buying a bit of merch, t-shirt, badge, scarf, whatever takes your fancy in the shop. You can become a member, or you can donate for the price of a pint. So folks, thanks very much, not just for during COVID times and last season, but for the past 21 years, because without you we wouldn't be here. And we're back on the road on our Celtic fan journey as we travel with thousands of Celtic fans to Germany next week or this week. And you can follow our journey across all our social media. You'll find us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn and Facebook. And you'll also be able to read about our journey on CelticFanzine.com. So folks, that's it for this episode. We'll be back later in the week, and we'll also be back with a Celtic Soul podcast this week. Thank you so much. Hail, hail.